I never thought I'd be betrayed by my own sister, but the part that broke me wasn't just her lie. It was the fact that my parents believed her. Without a second thought, without asking me a single question. It happened over Sunday dinner, in the house I'd secretly kept afloat for years. I even helped pay for the necklace she accused me of stealing. Instead of gratitude, I got exile. But what they didn't realize was, I kept the receipts. And I'm not staying silent. This isn't just a story. It's a reckoning. So stay with me and tell me where you're watching from. You're not the only one who's been betrayed by blood. Their mortgage, electricity, and yes, Olivia's full college tuition had been covered by me, all while they were blissfully unaware. Subscribing and letting me know your location will allow you to track my travels before I reveal what happened next. As the firstborn daughter of Martinez parents, I had certain expectations as a child. The Martinez family has always placed a premium on devotion to one's family. According to my parents, Miguel and Anna, during our family dinners every week, my dad would always remind us that no matter what else fades, our blood will always be there. Those words guided me in every choice I made from infancy into early adulthood, like a mantra. My parents bought our little Connecticut suburban house when times were better for the family of 4. When Dad was younger, he had a construction company that was doing well and employed 15 people. Mom had a stable but small salary from her job as an administrative assistant at the local high school. I never had to worry about the fundamentals as a kid because even though we were not rich, we were comfortable. During the recession of 2008, everything changed. Several big clients of Dad's declared bankruptcy, leaving him with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. This was a catastrophic blow to his firm. All of his employees were let go within 18 months, and he himself had to file for bankruptcy. Despite finding employment as a foreman for another company, his income was reduced by more than half due to the weight of failure he carried. Not only did Mom get a rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis that year, but our finances also took a nosedive. Even with insurance, the medical bills began to pile up, and their funds quickly disappeared. In order to remain afloat, they remortgaged the house twice. My parents were fighting tooth and nail to conceal the fact that they were struggling financially by the time my sister and I graduated from college in 2018. I am 7 years older than Olivia. I was there when our family's finances started to fall apart, so I knew how bad things were. But she was mostly untouched by it all. My parents, particularly my dad, were certain that they wanted a typical upbringing for one of their daughters. So, while I worked part-time jobs and scrimped on textbooks for high school and college, Olivia got new outfits every year, the newest phones, and a car for her 16th birthday. My sister did not do this with any malice against me, although our parents' decision to insulate her from financial realities was not her fault. It did cause a fundamental divergence in our perspectives on money and responsibility. While I learned to be frugal and rely on myself, Olivia came to believe that she could get what she wanted without ever having to work for it. I was lucky enough to get a position at a thriving tech company after finishing my bachelor's degree in computer technology. I got a good starting wage and was able to prove my worth very fast, leading to 3 promotions in a row. As a senior developer, I was bringing in 6 figures by the time I was 25, and stock options significantly increased my wealth after establishing my financial independence. I purchased a compact yet contemporary apartment that was about 20 minutes away from my parents' house. I learned of my parents' financial predicament severity on a non-scheduled visit home 3 years ago. Even though Mom and Olivia were out shopping, Dad took a call in the garage. I silently trailed behind him, intrigued by his low voice, and overheard him begging the mortgage company for a grace period for their overdue payment. I discovered him sitting in his weathered pickup vehicle, head buried in his hands, quietly sobbing. After he ended the call, everything changed at that moment. He became defensive out of pride when I challenged him, but the truth ultimately emerged. They had fallen 3 months behind on their mortgage payment, accrued enormous debt due to Mom's medical expenditures, and had resorted to using credit cards for months to afford basic needs. Finally, Olivia's acceptance to a private university with a tuition of $45,000 per year was the crushing blow. They were afraid she would be disappointed or that they would not be able to pay. So they assured her they would, though no one here understood it at the time. My decision that night would have a lasting impact on the dynamics of our family. Until they were able to get back on their feet, I offered to help with certain payments. Dad reluctantly gave his assent, but only on the condition that Olivia remain in the dark. He emphasized that it would be devastating for her to hear that we are having trouble, and that our daughter would be ashamed if our neighbors discovered our need for assistance. Helping out with a few bills swiftly became more than that. I was covering all of their bills, mortgage, utilities, property taxes, and a majority of Mom's medical bills within 6 months. I also paid for Olivia's entire college tuition when she first enrolled. Almost 2/3 of my take-home salary, over $70,000 a year, went towards supporting my family. I went at least twice a week, even though my flat was 20 minutes away, and I would bring in goods that I said were on sale or leftovers from company functions on weekends. I transported Mom to doctor's appointments, assisted Dad with house repairs, and even stepped in to help Olivia with her programming homework when she was having trouble in class. I pretended to be a bystander last Christmas as my folks presented Olivia with a brand new MacBook Pro, as has been the case with the majority of their large gifts over the last several years. I had actually bought it. Olivia showered our parents with affectionate hugs and gushed over their love, while I was presented with a sweater and a gift card. At least, that is what I told myself. It was good enough to see my loved ones smile. My parents wanted to get Olivia a unique present for her 21st birthday, which was 2 months ago. A necklace made of white gold and diamonds that cost $8,000 was the subject of her hints. An urban boutique, over dinner. She had explained that it is an investment piece, an heirloom I intend to preserve in perpetuity. The price tag made Mom look distraught, but Dad assured her they would find a way to pay it. Naturally, that something was me. I realized it was not alone when my dad called and asked if I could lend them the money. I had never received a dime back from the people I had loaned money to. So, too, was my expectation. That same day, I sent the money. And a week later, at Olivia's birthday supper, I witnessed her joyful unwrapping of the blue velvet box, complete with squeals of happiness as her dad slipped the necklace around her neck. "Beloved parents, you are the best ever," she exclaimed, taking stock. Their parents would never, ever gift them anything this incredible, at least not that I am aware of. While trying to ignore the old pain in my chest, I snapped shots and grinned. I kept hoping that they would finally recognize my efforts. I hoped that my efforts would be acknowledged and valued in due course. I persevered because I believed my family would eventually acknowledge me. Despite the fact that my savings account was getting smaller by the day, Olivia's social media was brimming with images from her spring break adventures and shopping sprees, which I had indirectly paid for. It never occurred to me that the necklace would be the cause of the downfall of the family I had fought so hard to protect. Going home to my folks for Sunday dinner was a holy ritual for me. No matter how hectic our schedules grew, we always tried to be there promptly at 6 o'clock. In the afternoons, Mom would whip up a special meal. For an evening or two, Dad would crack open a bottle of wine and let us imagine we were back to being the content, well-off family we once were. On that particular Sunday, everything began as usual. My mother's chicken enchiladas with homemade salsa verde are her specialty, and I got there early to lend a hand in making them. Depending on the score, Dad and Olivia would either applaud or moan while they watched a basketball game in the living room. It was all going according to plan until Olivia abruptly set down her fork midway through dinner. While her hand reached out to touch her exposed throat, she said, "Has anyone seen my necklace?" by instinct. This diamond one was a birthday present. Sometimes you leave things on your dresser when you are in a rush, Mom said. I was going to wear it tonight, but I could not find it in my jewelry box. Olivia shook her head in disapproval. I never take it out of the blue velvet case. It is too precious to be displayed, I inquired with sincere concern. Regardless of who had really paid for it, I knew that necklace meant a lot to her. I made sure to return it to its original packaging the moment I got home from Melissa's party last weekend, she said, her father's brow furrowing in response. I was not that drunk, Olivia protested. But were you sure you were pretty tipsy when you got back from that party? I was so concerned about misplacing it that I distinctly recall putting it away. We all put our dinner plans on hold to look for the lost necklace. I accompanied Olivia to her bedroom and assisted her in inspecting every surface and drawer, in the bathroom, where she may have removed it while getting ready, as well as under the bed and in various pockets of her clothing. We searched for it. Olivia was increasingly upset as we continued to seek without success. Her frustration was palpable as she mumbled, I do not understand. It should be here. As we continued our search throughout the house, I picked up on a tiny change in her behavior. Whenever I went into a room, Olivia would watch me closely. Despite my knowledge that she had not, she hurriedly claimed to have searched the laundry area when I offered to do so. Moments of unease started to accumulate, like the static electricity that builds up just before a storm. After an hour of searching in vain, we made our way back to the dining table. We attempted to salvage dinner by reheating dishes in the microwave. Even though the enchiladas had cooled down, Olivia was noticeably absent-minded, and the discussion was awkward as a result. She abruptly demanded, Rebecca, were you not in my room earlier today, with a newfound aggression in her voice? I choked on my food, my mind racing. What? I thought I saw you emerge from the kitchen as I was making my way upstairs, so I went right to the kitchen when I got there. I explained, growing more uneasy with her tone, that I had gone upstairs to use the restroom once, but that I had avoided your room. Mom adjusted her position in her chair. Dad looked over at us, his face betraying him. That is strange, Olivia exclaimed. I returned to find my door ajar. My mom shook her head when I mentioned that maybe she went upstairs to put away the clothes, even though I usually close it. No, I skipped doing the wash today. The insinuation was like a foul odor floating through the air. I did not hear any direct accusations, but the implication was there. Olivia, I cautiously said, as far as I am concerned, you are incorrect if you are implying anything. I did not steal your necklace, and I had no business entering your room, she said, shrugging. But her eyes still possessed an air of suspicion. All I can do is try to make sense of what transpired. It is an $8,000 necklace. It does not vanish into thin air. Well, it did not vanish into my pocket, I remarked, attempting to contain my rising anger. Dad loosened his jaw. The necklace goes missing on a day you visit, I replied. I visit twice a week, every week. Are you seriously suggesting I would steal from my own sister? I was stunned that he would even entertain the idea. Rebecca, no one is accusing you of anything, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. But you have to admit, it is a bit of a coincidence. Of course not, Mom said with a shaky interjection, avoiding eye contact with me. We are all just concerned, she said. And the rest of the supper was awkwardly silent. Olivia rebuffed my offer to assist in the search, stating that the necklace might turn up on its own. The inference was obvious that the necklace would enigmatically resurface after I departed. The thought that the people I had given my life to had so nonchalantly thought I could steal made me feel like an alien in my own family. And I drove home that night with a knot in my gut. Around midnight, my phone beeped with a message from Olivia. I have searched everywhere. I'm sorry to say it hurt more than I wanted to confess. No, it is certainly not in the house. I glanced at the message, not sure what to say. Another message arrived before I could make a decision. No longer amusing if you interpreted it as a joke. Return the necklace and we can move on. I typed and erased multiple replies before sending this one. I did not steal your necklace. Olivia, it would never happen on my watch. I wish you could locate it without delay. She responded very immediately. Whatever. Just know Mom and Dad are terribly furious. I could not sleep that night since more and more accusatory messages came. What had begun as a simple missing item had transformed into a referendum on my character, and apparently, I was failing. According to my sister's texts, my parents were not far behind in believing that I was a thief. The following morning, I awoke to multiple missed calls from both of my parents. I went for a drive instead of returning them right away. I figured we could sort out any confusion face to face, and I had faith in our family's capacity for reasonable communication, even after the unease of the night before. At my parents' house, I could feel the tension in the air as I walked in at about 10 in the morning. Mom was washing the dishes with an extra dose of energy, barely looking up from her work, and Dad sat at the kitchen table, looking downcast with the newspaper still sitting unread next to his coffee. Olivia, where are you? I tried to seem casual as I asked. Dad curtly said, upstairs, all morning. She's been searching her room in every direction for that jewelry. I inhaled deeply and said, listen, I know everyone is mad, but I must say unequivocally that I was not involved in its disappearance. Just as Dad was about to answer, Olivia stepped into the doorway, her face a mask of wrath and victory. Her blue velvet jewelry box was empty, and she demanded to know how this was explained. I discovered it in your former bedroom, tucked beneath the bookcase. I gazed at her, my confusion palpable. That is not possible. I have not set foot in that room for weeks. Well, the box did not just stumble into that room, Dad exclaimed, rising to his feet. Dad, this is absurd. If you are in financial trouble, Rebecca, you should have come to us instead of doing something like this. The statement was so ironic that I almost laughed. Here I was, keeping their entire household afloat, and he suddenly took on an aggressive tone toward me. I have no need for money, and I would never steal from my sister. So, how did the box end up in your room? He demanded. It is no longer my room. Anyone may have placed it there. I have not lived here for years, I added, including Olivia. With the connotation being rather obvious, Olivia let out a gasp, and Mom finally looked away from the sink. Are you saying I planted it? Why would I do that? Olivia asked. Please, we must not get into a conflict. Yes, there is, Dad continued, Buffen. System continued, his voice growing louder. The explanation is that someone took that necklace, and the evidence points to Rebecca. My cheeks turned red with hurt and anger as I listened to him. Which proof someone could have put anything in the empty box, right? It is a setup, not evidence. Why would anyone want to set you up? Dad challenged. I am not interested. Assuming I desired a necklace, I could easily afford to purchase one. Thus, there is no reason for me to steal one. Even though Olivia seemed upset when my parents were watching, I noticed something strange about her conduct during this intense argument. When they were not looking at her, I noticed a change in their expression. Upon realizing I was observing, she swiftly concealed a small smile at the corner of her mouth. Let us look into the security camera, I proposed. My folks had set up a simple system of cameras around the home last year, so we could see if anyone had taken anything from the front, the side, or the driveway. With a stiff nod from Dad, we huddled around his laptop to watch the footage from the day before. I arrived at 4 o'clock, bare-handed except for a bag of groceries. Various angles revealed nothing suspicious all evening long. By the time I departed around 9 o'clock, all I had with me was my phone and purse. I refuted Olivia's claim that she could have stowed away the unique jewelry box in her purse, saying, my purse is not big enough to fit that box without being obviously misshapen. The video quality was adequate, but my point was made. Perhaps you simply removed the necklace, then, she persisted. Absolutely. It could fit in a pocket. Dad said while rubbing his temples. "Rebecca, you could have sold it for $8,000 if you needed money. It would have solved a lot of problems." The discussion was getting crazy. My phone rang, and I saw that it was a payment reminder, ironically, for their mortgage due in 3 days. I went ahead and authorized the payment on the spot because it was routine, but they persisted in guessing about my possible financial motivations. "I do not need to sell a stolen necklace," I responded, putting my phone aside, as $3,000 were deposited from my account to cover their accommodation for another month. No one noticed that I was supporting my family in this way, even though I was being accused of theft. "I am financially stable," Mom whispered. "Everyone has problems." It hurt that she seemed to believe that even successful people fall into difficulties sometimes. I stared at her, believing that I could do this. "I have not taken anything." "Mom." "Then why was the box in your room?" Dad demanded again, as if that would change anything. "I told you I do not know, but there are plenty of explanations that do not involve me being a thief." As the accusations persisted, I caught a glimpse of Olivia typing on her phone, a small grin appearing for an instant. A horrible idea started to take shape in my head. Could it have been that she had planned this whole thing out? I do not see why she would try to cause tension between my family and hers. I finally snapped. "Listen, I know the necklace is important to you, and you are sad that it went missing. A lifelong commitment to honesty and reliability has defined me. Though this family may count on my unwavering support, is it logical, really, that stealing from you would be my immediate and irrevocable choice?" Dad's face became more stern. "People change, and sometimes we do not know someone as well as we think we do." His words sank deeper than he could have imagined. My character was being called into question based on my sister's accusations and circumstantial evidence. After all the sacrifices I had made and the support I had given without acknowledgement or gratitude. "It would be best if you were to depart until we resolve this issue," Dad finally stated. Olivia stood in the background, and for an instant I caught that face again. "Your mother is angry, and your presence is simply making everything worse." I turned to Mom for comfort, but she averted her eyes, silently accepting Dad's choice. I felt a deep feeling of unfairness as I grabbed my belongings to leave. This was not just about a misplaced necklace anymore. It was about more than that. I did not feel sadness or uncertainty, but satisfaction. I was walking to my car when I caught a glimpse of Olivia watching from her bedroom window. Our eyes met for a second, and I knew then that this was all about trust, respect, and the crushing realization that my family would believe the worst about me no matter what. After 3 days with little contact from my family, I realized that this was no accident. Rather, something more strategic was at work. Even though I still did not understand why my sister would seek to damage my bond with our parents. Olivia, meanwhile, had clearly been occupied with sharing her account of events with extended family members. Mom sent me a few non-committal emails inquiring after my well-being, being very careful not to bring up the necklace. Dad stayed mute. My Aunt Patricia, who is my dad's sister, called me that evening to ask if I would attend a family meeting. Her tone was kind but firm, as if to say that my continued membership in the family depended on my presence. She explained that everyone wanted to find a solution to this problem. "Your parents are very upset," I responded. "I am upset too. No one believes me. I have been accused of something I did not commit." "Rebecca, I implore you to be present at 7 o'clock because it is why we must speak." I consented, not because I had any expectation of a fair trial, but because the prospect of being alienated from my family whom I loved and who I longed to exonerate was too much to bear. I arrived that evening to find Dad and Mom seated on the living room couch, Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert in the armchairs. The setting betrayed more of an intervention than a family chat. Michael, my cousin, who had never warmed up to me, stood with his arms crossed by the fireplace as Olivia sat on the piano bench. her face contorted into a red mask that suggested she had been crying. "Rebecca," my father started talking the moment I took a seat. "We have brought this up before since this has persisted for far too long. The necklace is still missing and there is proof that you took it." In response to my demand for proof, Olivia raised her voice, her dramatic quivering betraying her true feelings. "I have been doing some research, and the pawn shop downtown does not require ID for items under $10,000, she said. "So now I have pawned your jewelry in addition to stealing it. This is ridiculous." The implication was plain, and my face flushed with rage. "Is that so?" Dad asked. "You have been acting strange lately. You have been too preoccupied with your phone, making up reasons to go early, and generally acting distracted." The early departures were to make it to my second job, which I had taken on 6 months earlier to assist pay Olivia's study abroad program for the forthcoming semester. The phone checking was to handle their bills. I almost laughed at the sad irony. "Rebecca, my darling, we are here to help you out if you ever get into problems." Aunt Patricia leaned closer as I remarked that did not prove anything. "The first step is to tell the truth. I am telling the truth. I did not steal the jewelry." The sad reality was that Uncle Robert shook his head and said, "Denial only makes this harder for everyone." This line of thinking persisted as other relatives took turns describing the benefits to the family as a whole of confessing, as if they had already decided I was guilty and were only waiting for me to admit it. No one even briefly considered the idea that I may be innocent. At last, Dad stood up to his full height and pointed his trembling finger at me, delivering his ultimatum. "Rebecca, I am going to tell you this one time, either come clean about what happened with the necklace and give it back to me, or leave the house until you are ready to tell the truth." I stood there, frozen in my place, staring at him. I whispered to him, "Dad, I am your daughter," because in all my 28 years of hearing him talk, he had never spoken to me with such contempt. "You have known me my whole life. Do you really believe I would do this?" I asked my mother, who had been mostly silent, after he said that the Rebecca I had raised would not. The betrayal sliced so deeply that I could hardly breathe. "Mom, do you think I did this?" She stared down at her twisted hands in her lap and said nothing. I had put my life on hold numerous times, supported this family financially for years, and all I got in return was incredulity and blatant criticism. Michael made the startling suggestion that we examine Rebecca's car. "She may still have it in her possession if she has not pawned it yet." Dad nodded before I could object. It was a good idea. I told Rebecca, "This is ridiculous," but I ended up giving them my keys nevertheless, so I would not seem resistant and raise their suspicions. Then we all gathered outside to my car's parking spot in the driveway. I heard multiple gasps as my dad unlocked it and started looking, with the rest of the family watching. He checked beneath the seats, in the glove compartment, and then came to the trunk. The signature blue velvet jewelry box was partially concealed behind a reusable shopping bag. I gaped in disbelief. I had no idea I had placed that there. With a look that conveyed both confirmation and disappointment, my dad turned to me after opening the box, which was, unsurprisingly, empty. "Will you continue to deny it?" I demanded with an increasingly desperate voice that someone had planted that, "I have not even opened my trunk in days." Michael mumbled something about a convenient excuse. My dad slammed the trunk shut, as if to convey our family's ultimate verdict. "I think we have seen enough. Rebecca, I would like you to go immediately." "My father," I pleaded with you as tears streamed down my face. "Someone is trying to set me up." "Do not get in touch with us until you are ready to take responsibility and make amends." He spoke with an air of coldness, saying, "I raised you better than this." He went on to say that stealing from your sister and lying to us both are equally unfair. As I glanced around at my relatives' faces, I noticed that some were angry, some were disappointed, and a few were sad and resigned. Olivia's expression stood out, though. Something else: satisfaction. Relief. I could not quite put my finger on was hiding below the fake tears. "Mom!" I gave it my all, one final go. "Please, say anything." Mom looked up at me, her eyes moist but her determination unwavering. "Just go," she said. "We need some time." I gathered my keys and handbag. Crushed and defeated, just as I was about to depart, Olivia took out her phone to see if there was a notice. I had a sudden, overwhelming sense of reality as I caught sight of the dazzling diamond necklace, partially visible under her sweater collar, reflected in her dark phone screen for a split second before she shook it away. The whole ordeal, the charges, the family gathering was a setup. My sister had planned my banishing from the family. She had the necklace the whole time. I was about to put my tongue out to expose her when I suddenly realized it would be futile. They had already found me guilty. There would be no difference between our words, especially without a nudge from me. This story is a painful reminder that love without respect can become a weapon, even in families. Rebecca's quiet sacrifices, paying the bills, covering tuition, caring for her parents, were done out of love, not obligation. But when her sister made a false accusation, the same family she supported turned on her without hesitation. It shows that no amount of giving can guarantee loyalty from people who are unwilling to see your worth. For older adults who've lived long enough to witness family conflicts, this story may echo a painful truth sometimes. The deepest wounds aren't from strangers, but from those we once called home. The lesson here is that boundaries aren't acts of selfishness, they're acts of survival. We must remember that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and being generous doesn't mean we owe anyone our silence when we're wronged. Loyalty must be mutual, and when it isn't. Walking away doesn't make you heartless, it means you've finally chosen yourself, at any age, but especially later in life. We have the right to protect our peace, to demand truth over comfort, and to remember that the love we give is only as strong as the respect it receives in return.